Hello everyone, bless you. Welcome back to Millennial Reign Ministries. I am Sharice McCain, your host for today. Now listen, today we're talking about whether Vladimir Putin is in the Bible, and if he is, where is he? Now, in order to understand the visions and prophecies of the New Testament, you have to understand the visions and prophecies of the Tanakh, which is the Jewish Bible, and the Christians call it the Holy or the Old Testament, which is offensive because it is the Jewish Bible, the Jewish Testament, the Jewish belief that the Torah, it comprises of the Torah, which is the law that Moses gave, and then you have the Nevi'im, which are the prophets, okay, the Nevi'im, and then you have the Ketuvim, which is the writings, and that's Ecclesiastic, Song of Solomon, Psalms, Proverbs, and so forth, okay? And so when you're reading as a Christian the book of Revelation, you have to understand that the two go together. You can't have the book of Revelation without having the prophets or the understanding of the prophets in the Tanakh, okay, or the Nevi'im, okay? You can't have the prophets in the Nevi'im without understanding the book of Revelation, because it's a conclusion to what has been going on in the Nevi'im, the prophecies, the Tanakh, okay? And so to understand, okay, and so to understand that the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible are just one testament, one and the same story, that's what we're going to talk about. Now, when we're talking about visions and dreams, you have to understand that a vision is being able to see something that's going to happen at a future time using symbols and imagery, okay? Just as we have examples with Joseph having been given two visions of what's going to happen, or Pharaoh actually being given two visions of what was going to happen to the fate of Israel. Those two visions had one and the same meaning, okay? And then with okay, and then with Nebuchadnezzar having a vision and not being able to interpret it, and God raised up Daniel to be able to interpret his vision. Well, so it is when we're looking at the book of Revelation, and we're seeing all of these things that are happening. We're seeing the candlesticks in chapters 1 through 3, four-faced living creatures in the chapter 4, different colored horses in chapter 6, the two anointed witnesses in chapter 11, and then the seven-headed beast in chapter 13. You have to understand that all of those things in the book of Revelation had already been revealed to the prophets in the Tanakh, okay, the Jewish Bible. Okay, the Jewish Bible. In other words, the first three chapters are actually in Zechariah's book, Zechariah, the 4th chapter, when he's seeing the candlesticks, okay, the seven candlesticks. Okay, the seven candlesticks, all right, and then he's also looking at, he also was given the vision of the two anointed witnesses that you see in Revelation, the 11th chapter. Well, he sees Zechariah. The 11th chapter. Well, Zechariah sees that also in the 4th chapter. Okay, the two olive trees standing on each side. Those are the two anointed witnesses. When you're looking at the chapter 6 with the chapter 4 with the four-faced living creatures, you're looking at Ezekiel, the Nevi'im, okay, in the Jewish Bible. Ezekiel was the first person to be given insight about or visions of four-faced living creatures. When you're looking at chapter 6 with the different colored horses, Zechariah 6 chapter 1 through 8 has those different colored horses. He was the one who saw this 500 years before John was given the vision, okay? And we're going to go into much detail soon, okay? And so John envisioned the two anointed witnesses, that was in 11, and then the seven-headed beasts, okay, in chapter 13. Well, Daniel saw it first in chapter 7. He saw the four different colored horses, the different beasts, okay, the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the monster with 10 horns. He saw this first before John had the vision and wrote it down in the scroll that we see now as chapter 13. Now, why were the visions written? That is the most important thing that you're going to walk away with this video. Why were the visions written? Because in order to understand, you see, I can't just tell you where Mr. Putin is in the Bible and what he's doing to Russia until you understand the backstory, okay? You have to understand the backstory, like what is happening, what has happened and is happening that is leading up to this moment that we are in 2022, okay? And we're going to get to that, I promise. But right now, I want you to understand that the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, the book of Ezekiel, and the book of Zechariah were all written for one purpose, okay? And that was because God raised up men in that time period to reveal to Israel what was going to happen to their people because of continued sin, okay? Because when they were brought out of Egypt into the wilderness, right? And they were wandered around the wilderness for 40 years, enslaved for 400 years, brought into the wilderness for 40 years. God told them that because I have chosen you to be my ambassadors, my timekeepers, my covenanted people, because I have raised you up to go into 7 nations, 7 countries, seven peoples, okay? Those 7 countries or peoples or regions that they were to go into and take over their land because of their continued sin, because of their sin, okay? And so God sin, okay? And so God raised up his people to do his bidding, and he told them what to do. Now, he told them this in Leviticus 26 chapter. He says that, now if you sin against me, I will judge you 7 times more for your sins. And that's what sins. And that's what happened. They walked with God, okay? They walked with God, but then they started to leave, okay? At their offspring started to abandon the faith. and rebelled against God's commands. And so that's when God said enough was enough. He took them into the 10 tribes of Israel, or 11 tribes of Israel, into captivity under the Assyrians first. Okay. Assyrians first, okay? And then he took the rest of the Israelites, the tribe of Judah, into captivity, and that was the Babylonian captivity when Nebuchadnezzar was raised up in 606, 605 BC, somewhere around that time. And then he took into captivity the Jews, the Jewish people, okay, the Israelites from Judah. And that's when from Judah. And that's when the visions and dreams began. First, it began with Nebuchadnezzar, okay? Nebuchadnezzar. First, it began with him, and then later on, Daniel would have the visions, okay? And then later on, or during that time of the invasion, Ezekiel had the vision, okay? Ezekiel and Daniel had the vision somewhere around the same time, and then later on, Zechariah had the vision, okay? So that's when the visions and dreams began. And that's why when John had the vision, during the years of between 70 AD and 98 AD, when he began to have the visions, some people would say that he plagiarized or he copied the visions, but that's not true. Because, how do we know this? Because there were different variations in the visions. For example, when Daniel had the vision in Daniel, the 7th chapter, of the there were four different beasts, okay? Different, separate beasts. But by the time John had the vision, he saw one beast with 7 heads. Now, why the variation? With 7 heads. Now, why the variation? Okay, why the variation? It was because during the time that John had the vision, the kingdoms, okay, because the beasts represent kingdoms, and we're going to get into this. This is just an overview, okay? Today is just an overview because we're going to delve. It's just an overview because we're going to delve deep. We're going to dissect it and get really down deep into what's really going on. But during the time John had the vision, he saw 7 beasts. That was because when Daniel had the vision, the kingdoms had not come yet. They had not come and gone yet. But by the time John had the vision, most of those beasts on those heads, like those four different beasts of Daniel, four main kingdoms. Well, some of those kingdoms had already fallen. Okay, and so that's why John has the vision that they've all merged together. Does that make sense? In other words, John has the vision of one beast with 7 heads. That's because many of the kingdoms had already come and gone. Most of the kingdoms had already come and gone. Those 4 main kingdoms with a total of 7 heads, or a total of 7 smaller kingdoms, or a total of 7 kingdoms, period. Maybe that might sound a little bit more coherent. 4 or a total of 7 kingdoms with Daniel's dream. And Daniel's dream, okay, many of those kingdoms had come and gone by the time John had the vision. And that's why there's a variation. So you're going to see variations in John's visions because most of the things that were supposed to take place during the time of Nebuchadnezzar's vision, during the time of Daniel's vision, and Ezekiel and Zechariah, most of those visions had already come and gone, had already taken place by the time that John had the vision in Revelation. Okay, does that make sense? In in Revelation. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so that's what we're walking away with today. Now, in order to understand where Vladimir Putin, where does he line up, we must be given the backstory of what's going on. Okay, and so that's where we are right now. Now, I would love for you to go ahead and click and subscribe, and also make a generous donation to Millennial Reign Ministries so that we continue going forth into the nations, preaching the gospel, telling the people about this is it. This is the time that we need to be awakened to the prophecies of the men of old, okay? Because they're coming into fruition right now, and we need to be ready when Jesus comes back. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.